All right, so we are only 41 likes away on the prepare for the CCHI video to be able to post MIP 21 in YouTube. And if you are supporting us on Patreon, you already have access to the MIP 21 since Tuesday. That's when we got to 50 likes, and we are more than halfway there. We still need your help to get to those 100 likes so we can post MIP 21 to YouTube. So let's get that video. Prepare for the CCHI. I'm gonna post a link up here, link in the description, so we can get that video to 100 likes, and we will be posting the MIP 21 video, medical interpretation practice video 21 to YouTube. And that is not all. Once we go ahead and publish that video in YouTube, you are going to get a chance to post your comment on that video. Let us know how we're doing, and after some time we are going to pick 2 comments at random, and the people that made those comments are going to get a chance to send us their recording to the exclusive MIP 22 links that we are going to send them, and they're going to send us their interpretation so we can provide them some feedback. So I am very, very excited about this. So let's get the Prepare CCHI video to 100 likes, guys. I know that we can do it. We are almost there. We are almost 60% there. We just have one more like to go. I'm pretty sure we're gonna be crossing the 60% mark today. So hello and welcome to Unwind Sessions, where right after my shift I give the highlights of my workday and answer any questions that might have been asked at a previous session. My name is Juan. I am an English, Spanish, medical video remote consecutive interpreter with over 4 years of experience. Today is Thursday, August 5th, 2021, and today I took a total of 36 sessions. It was a mix, like always, video sessions and audio sessions. There were a little bit of audio sessions today, not that many. It was more video sessions, so yeah, my back is hurting a little bit from sitting up straight all that time. But anyways, let's get to the highlights of today. Well, actually no. Before I get to the highlights of today, I want to mention something from yesterday's video. Yesterday's video, I had a new vocabulary term, which was trigger points, and I gave you the definition, and the translation was correct, but I do have to let you know that in my explanation, I was confusing trigger points for pressure points and for acupressure points, which are not the same. Now, let me tell you what acupressure points are. Acupressure points are points in the body which are naturally occurring, which if they are pressed, they can help in reducing pain and other stuff, and they help. And they are naturally occurring, and they are there. Now, for trigger points, I found out that trigger points are nothing but knots in the muscle. You know, if you've ever given a massage, you know, there's like in the muscles, when the muscle is real tense, you feel like this little lumps or this little hard stuff. And then the people, I know this because my wife gets one in her back, and then every time I touch that trigger point, which I know it's a trigger point now, but I knew it as a muscle knot or nudo muscular. Whenever you press that, they will say that to keep on pressing it because it gives them relief, or maybe stop pressing it because it hurts so much. You never know. But yeah, so that is a trigger point. It's just a knot in the muscle. It's nothing other than that. And I actually went ahead and there were some other comments that, because I left it open, right? I left the question open. But I went ahead and asked my friend, who is a physical therapist here in Mexico. I asked her if she had ever heard any of those words. And yeah, she said, yeah, they call them trigger points or puntos gatillo, and that's the only two that she mentioned. She didn't mention the other ones. The other ones could be correct as well. I'm not gonna tell you that they're not, but that is just what she mentioned. And she said that even here, but I'm in Chihuahua, I'm like close to the border, I'm underneath Texas, so that's probably why they say trigger points here. A lot of people speak English here as well, so that's probably why they use trigger points as well. So that just gave me comfort in knowing that, yeah, of course, that is the translation, and that is what it is. So just trigger points, regular old knots in the muscle. All right, so now let's get started with the highlights. So for the first highlight today, I forgot how to say larynx, laringe, and the the provider did not say larynx. So if she would have said larynx, I would have probably well, yeah, larynx, laringe, of course, no problem there. But she didn't say larynx. She said voice box. Now I knew what it was, but I couldn't think of the word. Like it just. So what did I do? I said vocal cords, cuerdas vocales, and that's not the same thing. The lady understood what I meant, but it's not the same thing because the voice box, the larynx, is what holds the vocal cords in there. So kind of the same, but not really. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And oh, another thing that I want to share with you guys. Now this has nothing to do with interpreting, but it's just one of those really joyful moments that happen with this profession, right? So I was talking to a gentleman and the session was over and then he asked me, where are you from? And I didn't, well, of course they have to specify that they're speaking directly to the interpreter, right? I didn't know, so I interpreted that, and then the gentleman said, no, no, no. And this was an old gentleman. I don't know how old he was, but he could barely speak. I don't know if he was just weak, but he looked old. Let's say above 60. If you feel offended because I called you old and you're over 60, I'm sorry about that. But anyways, he looked old, and he told me, where are you from? And then I interpreted that, and then he said, no, no, you, where are you from? And then I asked the nurse if I could speak directly to the gentleman. He was asking me a question. And then the nurse said, yeah, go ahead and speak to him all you want. So I was like, okay, sure. And the gentleman said, all right, so where are you from? And I told him, I'm from Mexico. And he said, oh, yeah, I kind of guessed your accent, but you have kind of like between a Mexican and an Argentinian accent. And he said, you know what? And I said, yeah, oh, well, no, I'm just from Mexico. And then he said, oh, well, you know what? All of you Mexicans are Spanish. He said, you might have some Indian in you. I'm pretty sure he meant Native American. You might have some Indian in you, but you're all Spanish. So, of course, that made me laugh, right? Why wouldn't you laugh at this man's logic? I mean, yeah, could be true. I don't know if it's 100% true, but yeah, it might be true at just broad strokes, right? And then he goes on to finish. He's all like, you know, I really enjoy boxing. And whenever there's a Mexican fighter, you know who I'm rooting for? And he said, the Mexican. And whenever there's two Mexican fighters, well, I just root for both of them. But if there's a Mexican fighter fighting a Puerto Rican, I'm definitely going to root for the Mexican. Man, but those fights are great. There's like some sort of a feud between you guys. And so I was just laughing at everything the gentleman was saying. It was pretty like out of context. I guess he just wanted to speak to someone, right? I was the only person that was there to speak his language. And of course he likes Mexicans, so hey, why not tell that to a Mexican, right? So, I mean, those are just those little things that make this profession that much more joyful, right? So I just wanted to share that with you. All right, and I have two vocabulary terms as well today, and the first one is, actually it's three. Scleroderma. and in Spanish is Scleroderma. And then I want to show you this one. Here I put it in Spanish first, Síndrome Crest, and in English, Crest syndrome. Now that was unintentional, it just happened to come out like that. So I said, why not? I'll just go with it. All right, so let me give you the mayoclinic.org definition for scleroderma. Now, scleroderma is a group of rare diseases that involve the hardening and tightening of the skin and connective tissues. Scleroderma affects women more often than men and most commonly occur between the ages of 30 and 50. While there's no cure for scleroderma, a variety of treatments can ease symptoms and improve the quality of life. All right, so that is just scleroderma right there, sclerodermia. And so what is Crest syndrome? All right, Crest syndrome is basically the same as scleroderma, but it's called limited scleroderma, just how it sounds, limited scleroderma. And in Spanish, it would be the same thing, esclerodermia limitado. And what is the difference between Crest syndrome and scleroderma? Well, that Crest syndrome is only limited to the skin, hands, and feet. That's all that Crest syndrome does. And scleroderma can just be all over the tissues. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, I did know Crest syndrome before. It was a long time ago that I learned it, so I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew that it was the same, Síndrome de Crest, because I had heard it before, and it was a term that I had before. So I just wanted to share it with you guys. I think it's not a very common term, but yeah, you might hear it. All right, so moving on to the second term, it's Sjogren's syndrome, in Spanish, Síndrome de Sjogren. And the mayoclinic.org definition is Sjogren's syndrome. It's like I have to read the pronunciation because that just makes my brain go crazy. Sjogren's syndrome is a disorder of your immune system identified by its two most common symptoms, dry eyes and a dry mouth. The condition often accompanies other immune system disorders such as rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. Now, the lady had this. They thought that she might, well, no, the lady didn't have this. They thought that the lady might have this, and they actually went and sent her to a rheumatoid provider, to a rheumatoid specialist, to actually go ahead and get checked and confirm that this was that. And the lady also had rheumatoid arthritis, so they told her just to go to her regular rheumatoid provider, and well, she said that she did. So that was it for the highlights today, and let's get to the good stuff. All right, so yesterday, Fabiola, you asked if a molar was muela, and the answer that I gave you was yes. But I told you that I would explain today why not. Now, the correct English translation for muela would be tooth, because there's not like a generalized term to in English to specify muela. Like, for example, they're all tooth, right? In English, they're all tooth. If you say I have a toothache and it's your wisdom tooth, you say I have a toothache, and then the provider will ask where, right? So they need to explain where like the muela is a tooth, and the correct translation to Spanish for molar is just that, molar, molar. And it means the same thing, molar, and muela, tooth. So they can be used interchangeably, sure, but as interpreters, we are not allowed to do that. Now, why? Because we have to match the register. For example, molar is very technical language, right? That's what a dentist would use. And when he would speak to another dentist, you would say molar and molar, right? But if it was like just two regular people speaking, one would say muela, the Spanish speaker would say muela, and the English speaker would say tooth, right? So that is register. And we have to match register. So what is register? Now, register is the different ways that we communicate in different settings with different people. For example, a talk between two dentists is going to be very different if it's two dentists and they're talking about a patient. Is going to be very different than if it's just one dentist speaking to the patient, right? Now, the two dentists might throw around big words that they are sure that both dentists are going to understand, and they have a high register, all right? And the high register is also technical jargon, so molar, right? And the difference to the dentist talking to the patient, now the dentist is not going to use the same high register that he would use with another dentist, because he's pretty sure that the patient is probably not going to understand everything that he says, and he's going to need to explain, right? So he is going to use more terms that the general public can understand. And I'm pretty sure that in both different instances, if it's the same case, the dentist might be saying the same thing but with different wording, right? One with high register, one with lower register. All right, so for example, let's say a patient comes in and says, tengo dolor en la muela. Now you are going to have to interpret, I have a toothache. And then the dentist will answer, all right, which tooth? Now the patient says, la muela esta, and you say, this tooth. Then the doctor looks at it and says, oh, the molar. You say, ah, el molar. Now you see how they were talking about like the same thing but using different register, and you had to match the register, because even though they were using the same, like the same meaning, they had a higher register and you had to match it, right? Of course, you could have saved time all the way from the beginning. Like you could have went in and the patient says, tengo dolor en la muela. I have a toothache. And instead of saying I have a toothache, you could have said, I have pain in my molar, right? And the doctor, oh, which molar? All right. But in this case, I wouldn't do it. But there are some cases, there are some exceptions as interpreters, which you can do it, but I'll get into that much later. All right. So going back to the exercises. So why is it important to match register? Because we are the voice of the people and we have to represent them correctly. Now, the register they use is meant to express an idea clearly to a target audience. Now, imagine if the patient says, I injured my finger at work, and you interpret, I got a boo-boo in my finger at work. Now, the doctor is going to understand what you said, of course, but you just made the patient look like a fool, right? Because nobody's going to speak like a doctor, like they would speak to a 2-year-old. So doctor, very high register, or medium register if it's a patient to a doctor, right? But if a patient to a 2-year-old, then you gotta like dumb it down big time, right? You gotta turn that register all the way down, and for the 2-year-old to understand you, right? All right, now that we have that, that is the reason to match register. Now, just to carry on with that example, let's say that you are translating a magazine article that is targeted for the general public about a medical condition, and it has a high school level vocabulary. And when you translate it, you use all this medical graduate language jargon, the most technical medical language you can find for that article. Now, of course, the target audience for that article is not going to understand what that article is even trying to say, right? Because it uses a very, very high register that most people are not familiar with, right? Unless they're medical graduates. So That is very important. Now imagine the opposite. Now let's say that you get to translate a very technical scholarly article for that the target language is medical doctors, and you use very colloquial vocabulary, like you dumb it down. You said the register is going down. Now that doctor that you translated that paper for, he's gonna hunt you down. He's gonna want to kill you, and he's gonna want his money back because you just made him look like a fool. Like, why did he go to medical school all those years if you're just gonna translate his paper? That's not gonna impress any doctors, right? So register is very, very important, and that is the reason why register is very important, and we have to follow register all of the time. And as a general rule, we follow register, and we have to give the same register. For example, let me give you a real life example that happens very often, and that is a word that I used in the GI vocabulary video, or a term, and that is a vowel movement. Now, vowel movement is very high register. Of course, well, not that high, right? It's kind of high, medium register, I would say, because there are some more technical words like defecation, right? I would say that's like high, and so if they say vowel movement, if the provider says vowel movement, we say evacuación intestinal, and then if the patient doesn't understand that, he's gonna ask, right? Oh, what is that? And then you ask the oh, what is that? And then the doctor will say poop, right? Now the doctor moves the register down, and that is the person, the speaker is the one that has to either use a more formal register or a more informal register, but that's up to the doctor, right? And there's not just formal and an informal. There's like 4 types of register, but I'm just like, this is very basic right here. And so the doctor or the provider or the person, I should say, the person that you're interpreting for is who decides what register to use, and you have to follow that register. Now, if the other person, if you're sure, 100% sure, the other person is not going to understand you, then oh well, you are going to have to interpret it just as it was heard, as you heard it, or with the same register that was used, and then it's up to the other person to decide if they understood or not, and if they ask questions. So it's between speaker number 1 and speaker number 2 that they get to choose what register to use, and you are only the voice that is going to follow their register, and that is the rule. Now, what was it? I think it was yesterday's video or the day before yesterday that I told you about INR and how I just do that all the time. And well, that's very wrong. That's very wrong of me, and I shouldn't do it. But I mean, the headaches that I've had from that, I'm just gonna keep on doing it. But for everything else, I follow register, and if they say vowel movement, I say vowel movement. If they say poop, I say poop. We don't polish the language. We don't dumb down the language. And if you think about it, I'm following the same register whenever I interpret INR, right? Because I interpret it as RIN. The only thing that I do is that I keep it in English after I give the interpretation, right? So I guess, yeah, that's register. That has nothing to do with register, so sorry. But yeah, we need to follow register because we are the voice. Just imagine, and this is the last thing that I'm going to say, just imagine that you are saying something and you use, like for example here on YouTube, I mean, I'm not going to talk in YouTube the same way that I speak to a friend, right? Like right here is like a little bit more formal, and I try to be professional and stuff. It doesn't always happen. but I try it. And let's say that you prepared something and you use like the best top-notch vocabulary that there is about that subject, and then someone just comes along and then he says the very same thing you did, but like with lower register, right? And then you tell him, hey, well, that's just, you just said everything that I said, but differently, right? And I'm sorry, that was a bad example. Like somebody translates whatever you say with much more lower register, right? And then somebody comes up to you and they tell you, oh, I really enjoyed your article that this person translated, and then they ask you about something, and then you realize that that's not the words that you've been using. You've been using a much higher register. Of course you're gonna get mad, right? And you're gonna send your business elsewhere. And I'm sorry guys, I feel like I'm already rambling, so I'm just gonna end this video right there. But just remember that you need to follow register, and it is not you who decides to register, it is your clients and the client's clients who pick the register, and you just need to follow that register with your interpretation. So that is going to be pretty much it for me today. Please leave your questions in the comments and I will answer some of them on the next session. Remember that if you have something that is time sensitive, go ahead and let me know in your comment, and I will try to get to that question as soon as I can, preferably before the due date, right? All right, and I'll be here every Monday through Friday after work. Remember that we are still trying to get the prepare for the CCHI video to 100 likes. I don't know where you can see that much better. I will post a link in the description. Once we get that video to 100 likes, we are going to be posting the MIP 21 video to YouTube, where we will give you a chance to comment, so you can send us your interpretation and we can give you some feedback to MIP 22. All right, and remember that we have the MIP 21 already up on Patreon, thanks to 51 likes to the Prepare for the CCHI video. And I would like to remind you that with just $1 little of your support, you help motivate us and you help us to create much more content for $1 of your support in Patreon, and we give you access to all of the medical practice videos free of those annoying ads. We give you scripts for those videos, answer sheets to the videos, vocabulary lists, and much more content. And most importantly, you will win a place inside of our heart forever. All right, a shout out to all of our Patreons, a shout out to everyone that has bought us a coffee. We love you. We love all of our subscribers, we love all of our viewers, and we love you that is watching the end of this video. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so for much more content, and don't forget to share. Happy interpreting. Goodbye.